All right, welcome back. We're going to start talking about how we actually name muscles. So, one of the things we're going to talk about is their location. So, for example, the brachialis muscle is located on the arm. Biceps brachii, triceps brachii. That brachii gives you the hint that it's on the arm, right? So sometimes the location is in the name of the muscle. Sometimes we talk about the shape of the muscle. So deltoid is triangular. We have our rhomboid major and minor on our backs. It's because it's a rhomboid shape. So things like that. Okay. Sometimes we just what it looks like. Sometimes what we're talking about is the size of the muscle. So things like maximus, minimus, longus, brevis is telling us about our sizes. So maximus. So the classic for that is going to be like gluteus maximus. Let's see what the example is. Yeah, gluteus maximus and gluteus minimus. We actually have several gluteal muscles. We're just saying that the largest one is the gluteus maximus. The smallest is simply the gluteus minimus. Sometimes we'll have ones that are particularly long, and then they'll be paired with a muscle that has the same function, but it's short. So you may have a flexor that's a flexor brevis, flexor longus, just depends. Okay. Sometimes we're talking about the relative size, which also just kind of keep in mind, we don't learn all the muscles in lab. So if you're seeing something that has the term maximus in it, and we don't talk about a minimus, just understand that if something we're saying this one's the biggest, that means there has to be other sizes. Otherwise, it would just be it. Same thing, if you have one that's long, by default that means there has to be one that's short. Otherwise, it would just be what it is. It wouldn't be the long one, it just is the one. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're going through some of these names, that if you see something like this, it's always paired with the opposite. Long, short, big or little, whatever. Okay. Let's get my slide to advance. Sometimes we talk about the direction of those muscle fascicles. Let's see. Classic kind of one is rectus abdominis, transverse abdominis, right? Rectus abdominis is basically your six-pack running straight up and down. Rectus is going to run straight up and down. Transverse abdominis is going to run across. It's kind of across on the sides. You'll have oblique, they're running at an angle, right? So it just tells you like what direction those muscle fascicles are running in. Sometimes the name itself is going to tell you about the origin and insertion. Please, like for those on a lab practical, and pay attention to stuff like that. So classic one is brachioradialis, right? It's telling you that it's going from the brachial area down to the radial area. It's telling you where it's going to and from. Another classic one is sternocleidomastoid. Everyone hates it because it's such a long name. I love it because it's telling you exactly where it's starting from and going to. So that should be an easy origin insertion for you to memorize. So it's going from sternum to the clavicles, cleido, to that mastoid process on the back of your, behind your ears, right? Sternocleidomastoid muscle. This neck muscle right here. It should be pretty easy. Sometimes the name's going to tell you about the number of origins. So biceps, 2 origins. Triceps, 3. Quadriceps, 4. Right? So just kind of pay attention to that. And just something with that to kind of keep in mind, in lab we don't ask you to learn the different names of the different origins. So the tricep does have 3. There's a lateral, a medial, the third head of the triceps is. But there are 3. They do have different names. Same thing with the biceps. We just don't have you learn them. But be aware that they, if you go on, they're telling you about this, they do exist. Sometimes the action that the muscle is producing will be part of the muscle's name. So, for example, you've seen this, something something flexor, something something adductor, adductor magnus, extensor carpi, digitalis or something, or digitorum rather. So then what it's actually doing is in its name. So if on an exam they're asking you, what does the adductor magnus do? It adducts. It's an easy question. Just keep that in mind. Okay. So maybe try and pair some of these things up mentally. Name, action, name, origin, name, location. You know, just again, whatever you can to make it a little bit easier to memorize all these things. Sometimes my slide does not want to advance. All right, I'm going to hide me so you can see this better. One of the things you may end up having to do, especially if you go into nursing, is give an IM injection. So basically what that means is that it's going into the muscle. I think that's pretty obvious. A lot of times you'll get an IM injection when we need to have that whatever it is rapidly absorbed, or it's a particularly large dose, or if the drug irritates other tissue types. So then you give it in the muscle. And you know, so you either get a shot in the butt, so in the gluteus medius muscle, vastus lateralis, that's going to be in the side of your leg, one of the quadricep heads, origins, or in the delta, in the shoulder area. In general, they're going to be faster than oral medication because they don't have to go through, you know, your stomach or your intestines. But obviously, they're slower than an IV injection because the fastest you can get anything into your bloodstream is putting it directly into the bloodstream. But so it's somewhere in between, speed-wise. But again, different reasons. Sometimes you can't necessarily give it directly into the bloodstream. It might irritate the area or whatever, so you put it in the muscle. And that's about it. So on a lecture exam, what I would do is I'd give you a scenario, and basically I might give you a scenario like, hey, scientists found this new muscle. Probably on zombies, just saying. Maybe, maybe not. But they found this new muscle. They notice that the fibers are running at an angle. They see one that's a short one and a long one. You know, give me its name. So just by those terms, you have your choices. You'll see something like, well, I know it's running at an angle. That word is oblique, right? If it's running at an angle, it's oblique. And she says a short one and a long one, so there's going to be a longus and a brevis. So right there, that would give you an idea. And then maybe it's located in the jaw. So maybe the term mandible is in there somewhere. So that's the kind of thing I would do. I'd give you, hey, scientists found this. It looks like this, or it has this many heads. It's in this region of the body. Based on that, what would be a logical name for this muscle? Again, it may be a totally fictitious muscle. It may be a real-life muscle, although chances are I probably won't use real-life muscles. But you should understand how muscles are named and why they're named that way. Okay? And those are the kinds of questions I would give based on this stuff. All right? So, short lecture? Yay! And I guess if you have any questions, as always, feel free to email me. Otherwise, we're going to go on to nerves and the nervous system, which is really awesome stuff. All right. See you next time.